Hello, my name is Marques Banks. I'm a staff attorney with Advancement Project. Across the country, Advancement Project, the ACLU, Civil Rights Corps, and other advocates have filed lawsuits against jails and sheriffs challenging their COVID-19 procedures. I myself litigated one case against a jail in Michigan. We want to ensure that you were all getting the necessary care during the pandemic. Now, many jails and prisons are starting to administer COVID-19 vaccines. I'm sure many of you, like me, have several questions about the vaccine and its safety. In order to help answer those questions, we created this video to ensure you'll have accurate information about the vaccine being offered to you. We have produced this video without any assistance or interference from any jail or prison. And everyone in this video is an advocate who has fought for the rights of incarcerated people during this pandemic. We know there's a lot of information out there about the vaccines. In order to provide you with accurate information, we have partnered with Michigan Liberation, a group dedicated to making changes in all areas of the criminal legal system to create a more just society. We also partnered with Dr. Debra-Furr Holden and Dr. Jennifer Edwards-Johnson, who have been on the front lines dealing with COVID and the vaccine. Machelle, Pearson, and Tamir are both returning citizens who volunteered with Michigan Liberation. They will be sharing their experience on why they decided to take the vaccine. Dr. Furr Holden and Dr. Edwards-Johnson will be answering questions about the vaccine. With that, I will turn it over to Machelle Pearson.
I'm Machelle Pearson. I'm Justice Advisor with Michigan Liberation, a returning citizen who served 34 years. I feel that this is a very, very important public announcement from us to save lives in there, because we understand how important it is for you all to get vaccinated, being that we've lost friends and loved ones to COVID who was behind bars.
Hello, my name is Tamir. I'm also a returning citizen and core member of Michigan Liberation. I spent over 12 years in the MDOC. And as a matter of fact, I'm recently released. I've only been out about 15 months. I know firsthand how COVID has had a great negative effect on the population of those who are incarcerated. And I think this informative video will be extremely helpful in influencing people and getting the right information so they can have informed opinions. I like to introduce my good friends, Dr. Furr Holden and Edwards-Johnson, to help me dispel some myths and give out some information about the vaccine. Hi, Dr. Furr Holden and Dr. Johnson.
Hi, Tamir.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Thank you. I'd like to get right into it and just ask you, how does the vaccine work?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Tamir. I'm Jennifer Edwards-Johnson. I'm a family physician, and I am a public health trained family physician. I am community assistant dean of our Flint campus of the College of Human Medicine, and I'm really dedicated to this work of ensuring everyone has the information they need to make informed decisions about getting vaccinated. So Tamir, you were talking about how the vaccine works. I think it's important to know that there are 3 vaccines that are currently approved for use in the US. And all 3 vaccines have been deemed safe and effective at preventing the spread of coronavirus, as well as severe illness or death from the coronavirus. And the vaccine does this by helping your body mount an immune response and preventing the virus from replicating in your body and wreaking havoc on your body.
I would like to ask Dr. Debra-Furr Holden, how did the vaccine come about so fast? And with it coming so fast, why should people trust it?
Well, COVID-19 is new, but we do have a lot of experience with similar viruses within the coronavirus family, like SARS and another virus called MERS. So when scientists worked to develop the vaccine for COVID-19, they weren't exactly starting from scratch. They'd already figured out the most important parts of the virus to target for vaccine therapy. That, combined with a big investment of money and time and resources into this mRNA vaccine technology, allowed us to create and turn around a vaccine much faster than we would have otherwise.
I was wondering, could you all tell me who was involved in developing the COVID vaccination?
I'd be happy to answer. So many of our nation's best and brightest scientists have been involved in sort of developing the vaccine. We have immunologists, virologists, our own Kizzmekia Corbett, who's an African-American scientist with the National Institute of Health. was really a part of the process to help pioneer this technology. So we've got our best and brightest sort of working on this process.
With what was just said, can you tell us who all participated in the vaccine trials?
Ordinary people, just like me, just like you, people of different ages, of different races, and different backgrounds. Some of the people in the trials even had medical conditions like obesity or heart disease. And there's a group called the Data Safety and Monitoring Board. This is an independent board of scientists. They reviewed all of the results from the clinical trials before the FDA authorized these vaccines for use in the community.
Is the vaccine equally effective and safe for people of different races, ages, and genders?
Yeah, I think this is a really important question, right? We know COVID-19 has disproportionately affected people of color, and that historically people of color have often been excluded from vaccine trials. In this case, with the COVID-19 trials, they actively included adults of diverse backgrounds, races and ethnicities, and geographic areas, and it's been shown to be effective across all demographic groups. And I have friends and colleagues who have participated in the trials myself.
So, Dr. Holden, is it possible you could tell me how effective is this vaccine?
That's a good question too. The currently approved vaccines, and there are 3 of them, they vary in their effectiveness from 75% to 96%. So what that means is the majority of people who get one of the COVID vaccines, not only will they avoid getting sick from COVID, but people who are fully vaccinated, even if they were to contract COVID, are far less likely to have severe symptoms, to need to be hospitalized, and most importantly, far less likely to die from this disease.
So, doctors, what are the most common side effects after getting the COVID-19 vaccination? I know personally, my son had very strong headaches, and I've heard a lot of different other myths. So I would like for you all to tell me what are some of the common side effects?
Yeah, I think this is an important question. I think when we think about this, it's also important to talk a little bit about protocol. So after getting the injection, everyone is monitored for 15 minutes. We know that any severe reactions are likely to happen kind of in that 15-minute time period. I'll tell you that after I got my shot, I had some pain in the arm, for a little bit, not much else. But I will tell you, I had colleagues and friends who were out of it. They had the fever and chills about a day later. They had fatigue, they had the body aches. This usually lasts for about 48 to 72 hours. It should not last longer than that. But I do have friends who are exhausted. And generally the side effects that we see most common are that pain in the arm, that swelling potentially at the injection site, and fatigue and body aches. And like I said, those should all resolve within about 48 to 72 hours.
So I think I want Dr. Holden to answer this. Can you tell me, why is the COVID-19 more deadly for our population than anybody else?
Different viruses will react differently in the human body. The virus that causes COVID-19 attaches to receptors that are all throughout your body. They're everywhere. Those receptors are in your lungs, in your heart, in your brain, even in your reproductive organs. So in your testes and in your ovaries. And since this is a new virus, we're still learning about all of the harms that it can cause in all of these important parts of our body. So the key takeaway is we want to prevent people from getting sick in the first place.
What if a person is going through withdrawals, either from an addiction or from a pre-existing or existing condition? What should they do?
Yeah, this is right up my alley. I didn't say, but I'm a public health person. I'm an epidemiologist by training, and I've spent about 20 years working with people recovering from addiction. And the toll that withdrawal takes on the human body can be very hard, especially in the absence of supports. And everybody, despite incarceration status, should be supported through that process. So if you're going through withdrawal, it's best to get your COVID vaccine after your withdrawal symptoms have subsided to ensure that you're better able to manage whatever mild side effects that you might get from the COVID vaccine.
Thank you.
So recently, I know there was a pause on the J&J vaccine. And if I understand correctly, this would be the vaccine that would be distributed inside the jails and prisons. So are there any reasons I should be worried about the J&J vaccine being safe?
I think when we talk about the vaccines, it's most important to understand all of the risks. So let's talk a little bit about that Johnson & Johnson vaccine and why there was a pause. So the Johnson & Johnson vaccine was paused because there was a rare less than 1 in 1 million person event. And this event was a blood clot, a very serious event, a blood clot. It was a blood clot in the brain. This is something that happened to 1 in 1 million people. That's how often it occurred. And it's a severe event, so we want to recognize the severity of it. We also want to think of the risk of blood clot should you develop COVID. And we know that risk is about 1 in 5 to 10 people. That means for every 5 to 10 people who develop COVID or who get COVID, about one person will develop a blood clot. That risk is far higher than the risk of blood clot associated with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And the risk of blood clot associated with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is very small. We paused that, sure that we were ready and available to treat any side effects that we saw with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, to make sure doctors administering the Johnson & Johnson vaccine knew what to do should they see this side effect. So the Johnson & Johnson vaccine has resumed. It is safe and effective. And if you are able to get vaccinated, it's something that I would say.
So Dr. Holden, can you tell us, are any of these vaccines FDA approved? And if so, which ones?
Sure. The vaccines all have what's called an emergency use authorization. So there's different types of regulatory approval. The emergency use authorization is needed when a treatment is both urgent and life-saving. Imagine if somebody that you cared about got really, really sick and there was a medication and they couldn't get it because it wasn't fully approved. Well, an emergency use authorization is a way to get a treatment that's urgent and life-saving out in the world as soon as possible. What's likely is that the vaccines that we have available are in the process of FDA approval and will be approved in the coming weeks to coming months.
A quick follow-up question. So I'll make this a two-part question. You just talked about the importance of continuing to wash our hands and wear our masks, but the CDC just came down with some ruling that we no longer have to wear our mask, or if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear your mask. What do you all think about that? And also, what can I do if I choose not to receive the vaccination altogether?
I applaud the CDC's effort to help us get back to some sense of normal. I would not advise people to stop wearing their mask, especially if you are incarcerated. That mask is a layer of protection to protect you from others and also to protect others from you. If you choose not to get the vaccine, or if you choose to get the vaccine, continue to do everything that you can to prevent yourself from contracting COVID. It goes back to what Dr. Edwards Johnson said. You got to wash your hands. You got to wear that mask. And when and however possible, you got to try to keep some distance. And if you know that you're around somebody who has any symptoms, do your best to keep yourself safe.
Do either of you have any last thoughts?
I think that it's important for us to realize that I did not start in a place where I was raising my hand to get vaccinated. It took some learning and it took some listening to colleagues and some reading so that I felt comfortable. And I got to a place where I felt comfortable, and Dr. Holden and I have laughed about this. Neither of us were initially comfortable getting vaccinated. And, now, after reading and after learning, I felt comfortable getting vaccinated. I talked to my husband about getting vaccinated. He got vaccinated. We convinced his mom that she needed to get vaccinated. So this is something that, I don't just tell people to do, especially if I'm not feeling comfortable doing it, right? So this is something I'm asking my friends and family to make sure they're doing to protect them. I think the other piece is that when we think about COVID-19, it's important to think about the severe risk associated with COVID-19 against the very, very low risk that we think about when we hear about vaccination. All of the risks that might be associated with vaccination, whether it's the Johnson & Johnson blood clots that we talked about earlier, are far lower than the risk of getting COVID and potentially having severe side effects related to COVID. So I implore you to think about those risks, and not only think about the risks of the vaccine, but think about the risks of the vaccine and think about the risks of getting COVID. Wash your hands, stay distant, wear a mask.
Yes, and I echo that sentiment. And having lost family members, people in my community to COVID, and having spent a lot of time talking to people who've contracted this virus and recovered from it, I will tell people you'd much rather get the vaccine than get COVID. We're still learning a lot about this disease. We're learning a lot about the long-term impacts and effects that it has on people's bodies and their lungs and their heart and all of these things that we just take for granted. And so I really implore people, get those questions answered. Do everything that you can to protect yourself, but know you're not in it alone. We, like Dr. EJ said, we both grappled with the decision. And I wouldn't tell people to do something that I myself have not and would not have done. So I got vaccinated in January and February. And I don't regret that decision because I've been around people who've been COVID positive and I've managed to stay safe and COVID negative. So the best vaccine is the vaccine that's available to you. And I encourage people to consider getting it.
So personally, I just received my second vaccination about 30 minutes ago. And I'm here and able to talk now a lot well. My arm has not fallen off or anything. I personally have lost several family members and friends to COVID. And particularly, I lost a very close friend that was incarcerated who hadn't had a chance to get vaccinated. Fortunately, I see many people in our Black and Brown community that has had very terrible instances when getting caught with COVID-19. Dr. Johnson and Dr.-Furr Holden are from our communities. They're very informed, and I would advise everyone to take them up on their word and get vaccinated if possible.
I just commend these ladies for taking time out of their busy schedules for treating people with COVID or who may have COVID to try and help save our peers' lives that are incarcerated. I ask that you listen to everything that they've said, contemplate it. I have not been vaccinated yet because I have to discuss it with my doctor. However, I do have intent on getting vaccinated, especially after hearing these two doctors explain in depth what's going on and how it works. So I ask that you all listen to what they say and consider saving not only your life, but the lives around you.